This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610 and Ash, and brought to you by 212th Trooper requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing, and helps tell YouTube you like what I do. With that out of the way, let's get on with the story. Knowing his time is short, All Might crawls over to Bruce and offers him one of his few hairs that was not burned away in the explosion. However, Bruce refuses, citing they both know what happens when he acquires power, how it clouds his judgment and leads him to create terrible injustices while believing he's doing good. Undeterred, All Might protests that he's changed since then. He's a better, wiser man now. Though holding firm, Bruce replies that it is through that wisdom that he knows how easily he might backslide, so for the sake of himself and everyone else, it is best that he not be trusted with power. Sighing deeply, All Might relents, stating that he knows he won't be able to outdebate one of the smartest and most stubborn men he's ever met, though he hopes someday will find it in himself to let go of the painful past and look to the future instead. In an attempt to comfort his dying friend, Bruce insists that he's doing both. That's why he started Batman Inc., though in a slightly stern tone, All Might rebukes that's contingency planning. It's not the same, since what he hopes for is that his friend envisions a future that can make even the Batman smile. Earnestly, Bruce objects that he does. He has faith in, though, before he can finish the sentence, he realizes that All Might has died, having not gotten a chance to hear his declaration of hope. As a token of respect, Bruce closes the fallen hero's eyes, though it does little to improve the situation, not when he can hear All for One's triumphant chuckles a small distance away. Fortunately, these are not long-lasting, as the Demon Lord expires mere moments later, though the fact that he went to his grave knowing he had killed All Might makes Bruce's blood boil. Refusing to let All for One have the last laugh, the American hero forces himself to stand in spite of the damage to his body, pure willpower keeping him upright where muscle and sinew fail. The villain may have ended his friend's life, but All Might was more than a man. He was a symbol that Bruce will not allow to be destroyed today. By now, assorted members of the press have arrived at the scene of the battle, having borne witness to All Might's heroic sacrifice, and knowing what he does next will color the Number One's legacy, Bruce lifts the body of his comrade out of the dirt, allowing all to see the man behind the muscles. Then in a voice of deepest respect and grief, he makes a simple declaration. When it mattered most, he was here. These are not the only words said of All Might in the days that follow. Far from it, as every television network is quick to produce a special covering the life and heroics of the symbol of peace, while a state funeral is organized, which draws the attendance of countless famous heroes from around the globe, such as the American Number One Star and Stripe. Despite their injuries, both Bruce and Endeavor also make an appearance, the former somewhat reluctantly as he's always struggled with loss, though perhaps the biggest surprise of all is Sir Night-Eye, who despite his estrangement with All Might comes to pay his respect, his usual grey business suit swapped out for black to mark the passing of his mentor. As the person who was with him in his final moments, Night-Eye approaches Bruce when the service is finished, and the great man's remains have been laid to rest at the base of what will in time become a statue in his honor. Having expected this from either him or Kathleen, Bruce does not attempt to duck Night-Eye, instead asking what he can do for him, though the question he receives in return is not one he had anticipated. Is he now the bearer of One for All? On reflection, Bruce realizes that he should have known All Might's long-term sidekick would know the secret of his quirk. Though shaking his head, he responds that it was offered to him but he refused, since he's no symbol of peace. In that dry voice of his, Night-Eye concurs that he isn't, and it would be an insult to claim otherwise, though all the same, the knowledge that One for All died with All Might is a blow, especially considering he warned him this would happen years ago. Curiously, Bruce questions what the other man means by this, and seeing no point in lying to someone All Might trusted, Night-Eye reveals the well-kept secret of his quirk, as well as the fact that following the last battle with All for One, he used it on All Might and foresaw his death. In an attempt to save him, he urged him to retire, warning him of the gruesome death that would await him should he not. Though stubborn as ever, he refused, and thus further proved the infallibility of foresight. Stomach sinking at this news, Bruce agrees that Toshinori was nothing if not devoted to his work, while Night-Eye simply scowls that he wishes he'd passed his quirk on while he had the chance, though he supposes it's fitting that its proud lineage end here, since All Might once told him it was created to oppose All for One, and now finally the Demon Lord is dead, though he would have never guessed Endeavor would be the one to earn the credit for that. Speaking of Endeavor, he has remained hollow-eyed and silent since the battle, having not even spoken when the title of Number One Hero was conferred on him, fulfilling a lifelong dream. Due to his competitive nature and reputation for earning everything he has, most assume that his depression is a result of having received the accolade by default, rather than surpassing All Might, coupled with his own grief for the previous number 1. Though, Bruce has a slightly different theory, as while he has no doubt these factors do weigh on the Flame Hero, he believes that it is the death of his firstborn son that has robbed him of his usually fiery disposition. This is something Bruce knows he has to investigate eventually, as the existence of Darby speaks of some dark secret in the Todoroki family, though he also knows that now is hardly the time, both because he doesn't want to risk the new number 1 causing a scene, and because if anyone knows the importance of letting someone grieve a lost family member, it's him. Instead, when the proceedings are truly finished, Bruce returns to Wayne Tower where Izuku and Alfred are waiting for him. Knowing how much his protege looked up to All Might, the black-haired man asks if he's alright. Though remaining resolute, Izuku replies that he really ought to be asking Bruce that, considering how long he and All Might were friends, not to mention the injuries he took in the Kamino Ward fight. Shaking his head fondly, the Dark Knight muses that in spite of all the upheaval, Izuku's still the same as ever, always putting others' well-being ahead of his own, though the boy shouldn't worry since he's fine too, both physically and emotionally, since while it is true he will miss All Might, he's no stranger to loss. At these words, an unmistakable pain fills Bruce's eyes that promptly brings the conversation to an end, and figuring his master needs some time to himself, Alfred instructs young Master Izuku to resume his physiotherapy, since the new term at UA will be starting soon, and he knows the young man wants to be as prepared as possible to continue his hero studies. Grateful for the out, Bruce takes this chance to step away, climbing into an elevator and descending to the underground lab only he and a few close allies have access to. While not as expansive as the Batcave back home, it suffices while he's in Japan, and in some regards it is better, as no one would think he'd have certain key items and prototypes here. Specifically, it is in this lab that he has stored the hair All Might offered him, hermetically sealed and kept on ice so it does not decay. In all honesty, he does not know if the fallen hero's quirk factor truly has died with him like Night Eye said, though either way, he'll hold on to it until he knows what to do with it. However, right now he isn't here to look at a dead man's hair. Instead, he is intent on returning to work, though to do so he'll need better tools, as the battle the other night taught him that the caliber of villain is rising, and so he must rise to meet them. To this end, he sits down at the Bat computer and begins digging through his old files, looking for one he has not touched in over 10 years, one that at the time had seemed impossible, but with the booming hero gear industry may now be attainable, albeit with a bit of work and some modifications. Finally, after several minutes of searching, he finds it, and as the various schematics blossom into life on the screen before him, he feels something like a smile curling the corner of his lips. The time has come to make Project Beyond a reality. Meanwhile, as instructed, Izuku continues his physio, since while Recovery Girl was able to mend the bones and ligaments of his back, there is still a lot of work to be had before it and he are back in fighting shape. Nonetheless, refusing to let himself or anyone else down, especially when the world is more in need of heroes than ever, he does not waver, meeting every challenge that is set him, so that when the time comes to return to school, he has regained most if not all of his strength while suffering limited long-term damage, aside from occasional aches, which, all things being equal, is a small price to pay. However, while he may be back to the way he was, life at UA most certainly will not be, as in the wake of the Kamino tragedy as has come to be known, the students of UA are being moved into dormitories on campus for their own safety, with this complex being dubbed Heights Alliance. Though this is not all, as on the academic side of things, the students' workload is heavier than ever due to their teachers wanting them to be prepared for the real world. As part of this, they're instructed on how to devise ultimate moves, and given time to work on these in a makeshift training area built by Cementos to withstand whatever the rookie heroes can dish out. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately due to being quirkless, Izuku is exempt from this training, and encouraged to simply work on finding new applications of his gadgets as a substitute. Though already having a pretty good handle on this, he decides to observe and help out his classmates instead. Naturally, Bakugou has no interest in getting help from Deku of all people, while Ochako seems to be pretty set as she is practicing with her multi-directional hooks to develop a zero-G fighting style that will be difficult to counter. With these two eliminated, the person he is closest to is probably Todoroki. A strange thought considering he's not sure if the burned boy views him as a friend or enemy, though having wanted to check in with him after his kidnapping, this seems like an appropriate opportunity. Making his way to the corner of the training area, Izuku finds Shoto standing apart from everyone else, and while normally this would be so he doesn't hurt anyone with his powerful quirk, here the boy with two-toned hair is simply staring into space with a similar listless expression to his father. Even his ice seems weaker, as when he makes a token effort to summon it, it comes slowly, with the layer that encases a nearby block of cement looking thin enough that Izuku figures his batarang could probably crack it. Nonetheless, the green-haired boy does does at least make an attempt to speak with his classmate and ask if he's okay considering the ordeal he underwent with the League of Villains, though it seems all of Todoroki's ice has got into his tone, as before Izuku can fully get the question out, he is silenced, as Shoto flatly states that he has no desire to talk about what happened in Kamino, he just wants to be left alone. For a moment, a flicker of hurt forms in Midoriya's face at the harshness of this rebuke. Though, respecting the other boy's boundaries, he nods and turns to go, though not before stating that should Todoroki ever want to talk, he's here. In his broody way, Shoto does not respond, though as he watches Midoriya's retreating back, he cannot help but feel a small pang of guilt for lashing out, as it's what Toya or Endeavor would have done. In the weeks since the Kamino tragedy, he has spent a lot of time thinking about his father and eldest brother, as while he didn't know Toya all that well, he wishes he had gotten the chance. From their conversation at the League hideout, it was clear that the two of them had more in common than one might think at first, as Toya had recounted his history as their father's tool, and the anguish he had felt when he had been cast aside in favor of Shoto. At the time, the firstborn had hated his little brother, but since then had come to realize they are both victims of Endeavor, and both bear the internal and external scars brought on by his fire. He had then offered Shoto a chance to join him, so that together they might burn the bastard's unearned accolades to the ground, and make him wallow in the ashes before finally killing him. For a moment, it had been tempting, though it also exposed how unhinged his brother had become while allowing hate to consume him, with it being then that Shoto had decided to give up on his hatred for his father, lest he turn out like Toya. However, without that hate to act as fuel, he feels weakened, unbalanced, with this being clear on how brittle his ice has become. Though that is not all that is weighing on him, as when he thinks of Toya, he cannot help but think of his final moments, the explosion that claimed the life of both his brother and All Might, the explosion that would never have happened if he wasn't so weak that the League of Villains could capture him. How can he call himself a hero when he costs the world its symbol of peace? With this worry hanging over him, Shoto returns to his practice, though it seems the question of everyone's future as a hero is more up in the air than the students of Class 1A had thought, as a week later when they have all returned to the classroom, Aizawa makes a rather disheartening announcement that he's pulling them all out of the provisional licensing exam in the wake of All Might's death. To hear him tell it, this is not a slight against the kids' abilities, but rather a safety precaution, as he would rather give them the extra year that their competitors have to prepare, while also allowing them to sit the test in a less volatile social climate. Unfortunately for the scruffy man, this societal upheaval is why the students are also determined to take the exam now, as with their provisional licenses, they can begin doing actual hero work and help fill the void All Might left behind. Sternly, Aizawa informs them this is for their own good, though this only stokes the rookie hero's ambitions, with them going so far as to rise from their seats en masse and declare their readiness. As the class rep, Izuku's voice is chief among them, though shockingly his sentiment is matched by bakugou, with the miracle of these two working in tandem almost being enough to make Aizawa reconsider. However, it is only when Principal Nezu enters the discussion that he finally relents, as when the mouse man encourages him to let the children try, as they clearly all have the will to be heroes, he lets out an almighty sigh and accepts that he's seemingly been overruled. Though for the record, he's seen what can happen to provisional heroes who get overeager, so if he thinks any of them aren't taking this seriously, he'll expel them so they can't sit the exam. And so it is that before long, the day of the Provisional Hero License exam rolls around, with Class 1A joining other aspiring heroes from all around the country at Takaba National Stadium for the chance to start doing actual hero work. However, to do so, they must first pass a pair of grueling trials, the first of which will whittle them down from more than 1,500 applicants to a mere 100. To do this, each participant is given 3 targets that they must affix to their body, as well as 6 balls, with the rules being that if all 3 of their targets are hit, they are eliminated, while if they can eliminate 2 other students, they pass to the next round. With this, they are told to begin, as their meeting area gives way to a spacious mock battlefield, and recognizing they can't afford to be last off the mark, the UA students prepare for battle. However, as Izuku points out, there is no rule saying they have to fight alone, and in fact it would benefit them if they were to work together considering the fact that unlike the other hero schools, their actions at the sports festival were nationally televised, meaning their opponents have the advantage of knowing their moves and styles in advance, though what wasn't televised was the final exam, and their subsequent ultimate move training, meaning their greatest strength is in their combo moves and teamwork. For the most part, the other 1A students agree, as unlike Ken and Izuku as their class rep, making them more inclined to follow his plan, Admittedly, Bakugou is still Bakugou and so runs off with Kirishima and Kaminari hot on his heels, though this is hardly surprising. While in contrast, this more subdued Todoroki than Kennen is fine to simply do as he's told. All the same, Izuku feels confident that the friends he has with him will be more than enough to come out on top, with him quickly laying out his plan, which involves dividing them into 3 groups: attackers, defenders, and support. As the most experienced when it comes to throwing projectiles, he and Mineta will be the main attackers, with Tsu, Momo, Aoyama, and Tokuyami using their quirks to help take out any major threats who attempt to strike at them. Meanwhile, Todoroki, Mina, Shoji, and Ojiro will play defense, creating walls or batting away balls that come too close to their teammates, and ensuring they don't get split up, since it's likely their smarter opponents will try to do this so they can pick them off one by one. Finally, Ida, Ochako, Koda, Sato, Jiro, Sero, and Hagakure are in charge of keeping a lookout for danger, and relaying intel and commands to the attackers and defenders so they may work as a cohesive unit. With the roles assigned and understood, Class 1A take up a position atop a rocky mesa, with it being here they stay for the remainder of the first round. As simply put, they just kinda win with no difficulty, since not only is their strategy Batman caliber against a bunch of kids, but thanks to good leadership and communication between the teams, they're able to change roles fluidly, as after the attackers pick off the most dangerous opponents, they waste no time in trading places with the defenders, covering them while they score their 2 eliminations. Then, once their places are secured and the biggest threats are gone, the attackers and defenders work together to support those whose skills aren't really applicable to this test, assuring they will also be able to advance. As a result, all 17 of them are able to make it to the next round, with many of them crediting Midoriya's strategy and clever thinking for carrying them through. However, surprising as it may be, he is not the first among the class to pass, as this honor actually goes to Mineta, since after Jiro tells him that a ball he's touched will touch a girl, almost making it like he's touched a girl, he locks in and makes his 2 eliminations with a speed and ferocity no one thought him capable of. In the aftermath of this, they all reconvene in the waiting area, with it being here that they learn Bakugou, Kirishima, and Kaminari also passed, with the latter pair gushing about how Bakugou was actually an impressive leader too, right up until the blonde yells at them to cram it since he doesn't want these extras learning about his ultimate move in case he has to beat them down like in the final round of the sports festival. Nonetheless, Izuku does offer his rival some congratulations, stating that his time with Sir Night-Eye has definitely had a positive impact on him, only for Bakugou to slap both his literal and proverbial hand away once again, as he growls that Deku should focus on himself, since even with his suit, he's still at a disadvantage as one of the only quirkless heroes here. Meanwhile, another applicant from Shiketsu High makes his way over to join them, with Izuku and Momo instantly recognizing him from the UA recommendation exam as the guy who rode the wind, Anasa Yorashi if memory serves. However, as it turns out, he's not here to speak to them. Instead, he's got a message for Todoroki, that he makes him sick. As one, several of the burned boy's classmates prepare to jump to his defense, though having shown no reaction to this scorn, Shoto simply asks why that is, with Anasa explaining that he has not forgiven him for his rudeness at the entrance exam, though that's not what's filling him with disgust. It's Todoroki's eyes. Once he had the same cold, hateful eyes as Endeavor, who he also despises, but now he looks even worse. He looks broken, with nothing hot-blooded about him, and if he doesn't have that, he has no business continuing down the road to be a hero. Surprisingly, even this does not get a rise out of Shoto, with the two-toned youth sighing that perhaps he's right, though this just makes Anasa angrier, as he scowls that he better hurry up and figure out if he has the conviction or not, since what the world needs now is more heroes like All Might, not half-assed chumps like Endeavor who lose their nerve when things get hard. Luckily for the aspiring wind hero, it is here the second round is announced, forcing everyone to turn their attention away from him and over to the proctor, as it's explained that the next test will be a rescue. Specifically, the 100 young heroes' job is to act as first responders and save as many children and elderly people from the aftermath of a simulated terrorist attack on a city. Based on their actions, they will receive point deductions for any shortcomings the examiners find, and should they fall below 50% of their starting total, they will be disqualified. With this rather grim pronouncement, the second round begins, with Izuku and Ochako leading the rescue effort this time, since their detect division gives them a somewhat unfair advantage, as they're able to see trapped civilians and structural weak points. Wisely, Momo makes them walkie-talkies so they can give orders to the other applicants, even the ones not from UA, since things will go smoother if they all work together. To this end, Izuku takes up the position of on-the-ground leader, while Ochako uses her suit and fruits of her recent training to zip around the arena, while having a bird's-eye vantage point that allows her to relay information her green-haired friend could not know. This does wonders for the combined rescue effort, with the civilians who are also the examiners having few criticisms, despite being fairly harsh markers. One person who is surprisingly useful is bakugou, as thanks to his work study, he is able to apply the analysis he was taught to find weaknesses in the collapsed buildings that he can blow away with his quirk, saving civilians trapped within. Admittedly, these are weak points Izuku or Ochako would have pointed out had he accepted a walkie-talkie like the others, though he has no desire to listen to Deku or Mochi Cheeks anyway. Nonetheless, the examiners are impressed with his natural aptitude for demolition and proactivity, even if his attitude leaves something to be desired. Subsequently, there are fewer civilians left to be rescued when Gang Orca busts in playing the terrorist leader for the second leg of the test, with it falling to the prospective heroes to keep him from doing more harm to those they're here to save. Like in canon, Anasa decides to challenge him to a fight, figuring this is the best way to keep him occupied while the others find the final people in need of help, though as he will learn, he may be the one most in need of it, as despite his impressive quirk and red-hot fighting spirit, he alone is no match for the 10th best hero in Japan. Fortunately, he is not alone for long, as just when it seems Gang Orca will put him down for the count, Todoroki steps in to assist. At first, Anasa is none too happy to see him, claiming he has no need for someone with no passion who will only slow his wins, though this is met by a resolute look as Shoto asks what about an ally who's found his convictions and wishes to repay his debt. Eyes blazing at such a manly answer, Anasa questions what the other boy has in mind, and meeting his gaze with eyes that are still stony cold, Todoroki answers that a combined attack might be enough to stop the Aqua Hero in his tracks. Due to there being no bickering unlike the main timeline, the pair are able to move directly into this combo, though it is not the flame vortex that would dry Gang Orca out. Instead, the pair combine Shoto's ice with Anasa's wind to create a blizzard localized entirely around the pro. As the gusty youth had said, this does slow his air currents by making them denser, though this is by design, as it subsequently makes them harder for Gang Orca to move through, while being buffeted by ice and snow whipped up by the winds. In a commending tone, the number 10 hero praises that under such conditions a regular villain would give up, though he is hardly regular, with this being followed by an ultrasonic blast that dissipates much of the blizzard. However, it seems this distraction is sufficient, as at that moment the buzzer sounds, signifying the end of the exam thanks to the better coordination by all parties. Making their way back to the assembly area, the young heroes are informed that in a rare showing, 91 of them passed despite the stricter marking system this year, with the members of Class 1A being delighted to see they all passed, including Bakugou and Todoroki, thanks to the former's more analytical approach and the latter's ability to work as part of a team. Even Anasa is among the successful students, with him thanking Todoroki for his help, while in the same breath stating that he still thinks he's scum for his lack of vigor, to which the burned boy nods that he is in turn grateful for reminding him why he became a hero in the first place. Meanwhile, Izuku is over the moon when he is given his provisional license, which carries his name and photo, though this is not all, as in a small box at the bottom is written his hero name, having been formally recognized by the Hero Public Safety Committee. Something about this fact makes the green-haired youth smile, and as he runs his thumb over the printed text as if he's trying to convince himself that it's real, a sense of pride begins to swell inside him. He is Batman. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.